Loves here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the role of background chords in a beat. So I have a beat here. It's a much older beat, but it is mostly just background elements. It was intended one day to have a singer, and I just never got to it. And so there's no melody. It's all background stuff, but I think it's a really, really nice sounding beat. And what's important about this beat is how I use the background chords. So that's what creates the atmosphere that we're in, besides the sounds that I pick. So here, I'll just play a portion of it for you. I'm going to start sort of in the middle, but here you go. That delay, I don't know what's up with it, but when I play through, it comes in on time sometimes, and other times it doesn't. So that's a weird thing I'd have to experiment with. But that's obviously supposed to be in time. But the chords take on a more aggressive role here. Check it out. Yes. So let's talk about what background chords are supposed to do. So first off, they're supposed to reveal the harmony. So as you go through, the way you choose to use your background chords will display the harmony in various forms to the listener. If in this case, I chose a method that's it's a 2-chord movement. So we go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. I was originally going to pull out the circle of fifths and fourths, but I cover this in the theory series, and it's much more appropriately placed over there. So if you're looking for ways to create cool chord progressions, go check out over there we cover chord progressions all the time, all over the place in the MIDI music theory course. So you're going to have a most important chord. You're going to have, like in this case, it's C minor. And I am constantly going back and forth from C minor to F major. So we go C minor, F major, C minor, F major. And then what makes this interesting is there's a development, and it just grows into this thing that gets big and it swells. And I show you new portions of this chord that you didn't know were there before, because I lulled you into the sense of where they belong. And then when I bring them out, it's like, holy cow. So chords, they reveal your harmony, and they should reinforce the rhythm of your track. So in this case, the do, 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 do. And these are just outlining these beat movements. But if you're doing something more funky, your background chords could be short little stabs that go on, like do, da, 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 da. They could be something a lot shorter and a lot more rhythmic. In this case, they're long and flowing and smooth. And so that's the role that the chords should fulfill, is they should reinforce your rhythm, and they should reveal your harmony in ways that are meaningful. If you just blatantly put out all your notes right out there, it always sounds dumb. It's like the person who's just banging the main chords. It can sound really cool if that's the main idea, if that's really what you want. But if you do it in an out of place way, because just go down the FL Facebook group, people post their tracks there, and there are examples for days. Some are really good examples of like skillful ways of revealing keys. Others are more people who are just starting out and they don't really know any other way, and so they just hit every note that's available to them right off the bat, and it sounds corny is the way I would describe it. Very corny sounding sound, not as skillfully done. Some of it can be alleviated by the sounds you pick. So these sounds, because of their nature of how they slowly introduce themselves, or lend themselves a little more to this quality of, go ahead, show us the notes. We want to hear how they slowly come together, versus something that's very sudden and stays the same. So like a bad MIDI piano, that will not lend itself as nicely to that style of writing. So you just keep that in mind as you go. So that's what it's supposed to do. Now I pick here, they sort of just float up and down in the background. They're not supposed to pull the main attention. You see there's lots of room for something else to happen. We could have a melody, but at the same time it's very, very pleasant, and they form a nice little syncopated thing by themselves. So they come together to form something bigger. And that's how you know you've got good stuff going on in the background. If you have stuff that if you were to strip off all the main ideas and what's left is like utter chaos, sometimes actually that's kind of cool. But most of the time, if you're going for like a conventional sort of beat, that reveals that you have a poor support structure for your higher elements. That might be the reason that your beat's not jiving. Occasionally, you'll come across those where the idea is you pull together this sort of chaotic thing, and it forms into something that you now recognize. And if that's the idea you're going for, then it's a totally different story. But most of the time in conventional work, you're not doing that. You're doing the other thing. You're building a support structure to allow a main idea to be presented on a stage that you've built out of background elements. And so that's just something to keep a note here. So we go through, we introduce it. I introduce my rhythm, and I give you a little taste of the chords, and then I give you a little bit of color by adding in some more background elements. I outline the background elements and the rhythm with a bass that I bring in over here. And before long, we're just going back and forth. And then over here, what's surprising is I introduced drums, and I'm using MIDI loops. We talked about ways you can go ahead and do drums. Obviously, this is not a complicated beat. The idea is not to be some mega artistic thing. This thing is supposed to move you like emotionally. No one's going to sit here and listen to this for technical amazement. So it would be completely nil trying to be creative in that department. That's not what I'm trying to be creative in. And so but you see they grow and grow, and what's really interesting is the chords are the same chords. They don't change at all. They just get bigger. And I accomplish this by getting a little louder. The swells grow a little bit, and the notes, there are more notes. And so they split off into more notes, and it gets louder, and we reveal the upper notes. We reveal higher harmonics. That's not a great way of saying that. Higher notes are used, and as a result, we hear colors of the violins that came out that did not come out before. And so it's really cool. And then I go back to my original little thing, and then it just grooves the way through. It's just something that you just sit and you just relax, you just listen to it, and it would lend itself very nicely to just an easy singer. Sometimes the best songs are those songs where it's just the piano and the singer, and the way the piano plays the background role and the way the two hands interact with each other is what makes it's so beautiful, because when it comes together, you can clearly hear the piano supporting the singer, and oftentimes background elements will swell out a little bit and sort of just reveal like, hey, I could be way more beautiful, but I'm supporting something that's bigger than me. And so in a way, it's sort of like this piece of art. Well, it was already a piece of art, but it's this thing that's just like, wow, this is really something special going on. And when that's there and is done right with the right singer or the right melody or element, performance, whatever it is, it becomes a very powerful thing. And so that's that. If you have any questions about background elements, let me know. My challenge to you is to go in and create a chord progression, create a series of background elements in which the way you construct your chords and introduce them contributes to the structure as a whole and the structure as individual phrases, and bring it out at some point in your beat and then bring it back down. And go ahead and post a link to the work that you've done and explain what were your ideas, and also identify what to you is the climactic part if it's not immediately obvious. And because sometimes you'd be surprised, sometimes you think that it's so obvious this is the climactic part, when then people will be like, nah, this to me personally was the most climactic part. So it's good to get feedback from people like that. So yeah, go ahead, do that, and I promise you'll be all the better for it. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.